They say New York is a city of bright lights and towering dreams, but for me, it was a place where my dreams died. Hi, I'm Emma Carter, and this is how I finally found my way home. The city is a loud, crowded place to lose yourself, but it's an even louder place to realize you've been discarded. 7 months after the end, and the ink was barely dry on his marriage certificate before I realized my entire reality was a lie I'd been telling myself. The life I had in the city was a mirror reflecting someone else's desires, not my own. I packed the remnants of my life into a sedan and drove until the noise of traffic was replaced by the rustle of pines. I didn't arrive in Willow Creek looking for a miracle. I arrived here looking for a place to hide until the stinging stopped. I arrived here because for the first time in my life, I had absolutely no idea who I was supposed to be. I pull into the driveway, my eyes lingering on the house. Familiar, yet carrying a new weight. Once my mother's anchor, now it feels like mine. The garden bursts with color, the stone path guiding me toward the porch where rocking chairs wait like old friends. Joe and Macy Gray are waiting for me on the porch. In that instant, the weight of belonging settles gently on my shoulders. They were never just neighbors. Joe steadied my bike when I was 8, his calm voice pushing me toward balance. Macy slipped me cookies after school, listening to secrets I couldn't share anywhere else. They were my mother's closest friends, but to me, they were constants, the quiet heartbeat of home. And today, they are among the people in Willow Creek I call family, proof that some bonds don't fade, they only deepen with time. Later, the house felt too full of half-unpacked cardboard, so I stepped out, leaving it behind. The evening air was cool against my skin as I walked down the street. My glance drifted toward the neighboring property, where a man stood on the porch, rugged, hands stained with the grit of work, eyes shadowed by a quiet intensity. The moment lingered, like a question I wasn't ready to answer. The town was a living memory. I walked streets where every cobblestone felt like a footnote in my own history. I passed Nellie, once the golden girl of the high school bleachers, now moving with the slow, purposeful weight of a woman in her 3rd trimester. Nellie greeted me with a smile that carried the easy warmth of shared geography, even if our paths had never truly converged. Further down, the bell of a familiar salon chimed. Charlotte was there, rising from a stylist's chair with a look that bridged years. She had once braided my hair on humid Saturdays in Willow Creek, her hands steady and stories flowing. It was lovely seeing her again. The bell above the bakery door chimed softly as I stepped inside. The air was thick with the scent of fresh bread, sugar, and something gentler, quiet joy, as if the walls themselves had absorbed years of laughter and comfort. Behind the counter stood Clara, her apron dusted with flour. Her hands were steady, but her eyes carried a history. Clara wasn't just the baker, she was the keeper of stories. Every loaf had a memory kneaded into it, every cake a celebration preserved. She had inherited the bakery from her grandmother, who taught her that bread was more than food, it was belonging. As I stepped out of the bakery, the warm, yeasty aroma wrapped around me like a comforting blanket. Turning the corner, I spotted my former English teacher, Mrs. Benson, at a nearby boutique. She radiated warmth, just as I remembered, always feeling more like a painter than a teacher. We embraced, a grounding hug that spanned the years since I had last sat in her classroom. As we exchanged small talk, I noticed that familiar, keen look in her eyes, the one she used to get while analyzing a captivating essay. She appreciated my knack for crafting vivid imagery and weaving intricate narratives, often praising my ability to express complex emotions with clarity. Then, she mentioned her new role at the local newspaper and suggested I join her team. She recognized the potential in me that I had yet to fully realize, believing that my talent for storytelling could resonate with a broader audience. The unexpected offer hung in the air, bridging my past with a potential future. I took a moment to absorb it, feeling the weight of her confidence in me. With a smile, I resolved to give it some serious thought. Sunday brought the town together under the rafters of the church. The air was heavy with the comforting, ancient scent of old wood and incense. Father Mark Benson, a man who viewed the world through the lens of quiet compassion, held court from the pulpit. When he later requested a private moment with me, his eyes were kind, almost knowing, as he placed the mantle of pastoral care before me. It was a role I had performed for years, a language I knew how to speak fluently, yet I hesitated. I offered him only a tentative promise to think on it. After our conversation, I drifted into the church potluck that followed, where the town greeted me with a warmth that felt like a tide. It was there, amidst the clatter of plates, that I finally stood in the presence of Daniel. He was a quiet fixture in the yard, his rugged frame a stark contrast to the soft chatter of the parishioners, his gaze lingering on me for a heartbeat longer than necessary before he turned away. As the sun began to dip, Joe and Macy offered to drive me home, but the sudden need for solitude pulled at me. I declined, choosing instead to walk. I moved through the streets under a bruise-colored twilight, watching the silhouettes of gardens and rooftops blur into the landscape of my childhood. For a fleeting moment, I felt a sliver of peace. But when I crossed the threshold into my house, the silence slammed into me. The boxes remained untouched, and the stillness of the rooms felt less like tranquility and more like an abyss. The isolation was absolute, a hollow echo of the life I had left behind. I realized then that I could not sit with the silence. I needed the structure and the distraction of purpose. I pulled my phone from my bag and dialed Father Mark. The deal was struck. My role was simple in words, vast in emotion: assist with administrative work, manage confessions, and listen. Monday arrived, and with it, the first voices. Mrs. McCarthy, heavy with loss; Sylvester, trapped in the knotty frustration of regret; and Mr. MacDonald, whose memories of his mother refused to settle. I listened, and I learned. By Wednesday, the church had become a sanctuary of shadows. Clara came in. She did not come to pray, but to lean into the safety of the church. Her voice was soft, hesitant, but filled with weight. She spoke of loneliness, a slow, creeping chill, and of the anonymous flowers that arrived on her birthday every year. Going home, I carried Clara's words home like a glass vase, fragile and full. That Saturday afternoon, the garden lay bright under the sun, its colors vivid against the pale fence where I stood with Macy. The air was warm, carrying the sharp scent of herbs crushed beneath our steps. I spoke softly of the heaviness I had carried that day, how easy it is to forget just how much this work asks of you, holding the quiet sorrows and the unspoken pain of the people who come to me. I also told her of the offer from Mrs. Benson at the newspaper, a job I had tucked away in the back of my mind. Macy listened, nodding gently, and reminded me of the offer I had received from the paper. She urged me to use it, to share the stories I carried, to help people, and to remain anonymous if I wished. She believed I had a gift, one that could give others a voice. The next morning, the rhythm of my life shifted. I didn't head to the church office. I found my feet carrying me toward the newspaper building. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of newsprint. Mrs. Benson looked up, her sharp eyes softening as she recognized the resolve she had been waiting for. I told her simply that I had been thinking about the stories I had been carrying, about the people who felt invisible, and about the lives quietly waiting to be seen. I accepted her offer at Willow Creek Chronicles. After our conversation, I stepped out of the office and into the bright morning air. Tomorrow, Willow Creek would wake, and the first story of many would quietly begin to unfold.